Nyt se ruksuttaa. Kohta ollaan livenä. Hei, mä laitan teidän nimi. Just so that you know, I will put an asterisk in front of your names so that it will be more easy for me to understand who is not going to the breakout rooms. Just so that you know what that's about.
Ehkä mäkin kokeilen nyt vielä jakamista napsaan.
All right, we are now live on YouTube, just so that you know.
Great. Good morning, YouTube.
Welcome to our tech checks.
Okay, tech check. Can you see my slides?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Good.
By the way, Jaakko, now that I'm not able to log myself into the Citrus YouTube account, I cannot post any comments there either.
But yes, well, you can if you
as me, but
as
not
you,
as Citra.
Yeah.
So
but I don't think Jaakko can necessarily take care of two chats simultaneously.
I will try to. I'll try to log in unless Heli has the phone that we would need for verifying the account.
No, actually, I don't. I think I think Taru has it. Taru Keltanen.
Okay, I can of course try to check it with Taru, since we still have 15 minutes time.
Yeah.
But I can then comment as myself. So
yeah, I have also in some HERÄÄMÖ commented as myself. I have just introduced myself in the beginning, like, hi, I'm Lisbeth from Citra, and I will be hosting today. Ooh, should I now share some music for us? Maybe I could.
Did we have some questions for the breakout rooms already? Are they upcoming?
We have for the Ashoka's part, we do. They are in the Excel, but Anna's questions, we don't. We're supposed to get them now in the morning.
All right.
But let's hope Anna joins us soon. So, and if not, then she can just instruct them herself.
again, I have some difficulties on putting the YouTube link on the website of the event.
Oh no, it was the same thing last time.
Yeah.
I don't know what's the problem with that. Hey, can you hear some music now?
No. Yeah.
Very quietly.
No. Yeah, it was very quiet at the beginning.
Okay, now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yay. Thank you, Riina, for the playlist.
I was expecting Lordi.
Why?
No.
Since it's the Eurovision phase right now here in Sweden.
That's true.
Oh.
That's true.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it was Saturday when we were watching TV and Melody Festival, and my question was like, how many are these? Like, because it feels like I don't know, because it's only one competition, like and one TV show in Finland, and then it's like I've been watching Melody Festival and Saturdays for like I don't know already how long.
Do you only do it once? You only do it once?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
We only have one show, and then it's like we vote and that's it.
In the good old days, it used to be like that here, but I guess they're capitalizing on the more songs, the more TV broadcasting time. And I think we just finished the 3rd week. I'm not following it, but I think maybe 2 more or 1 more.
Okay.
And then of course there's the one that are the 3s and 4s. They have to fight for the final spot as well.
Well,
So there's 1 more on top of that.
And then it's like, because it's already like quite harsh, but then it's like the grand final is gonna be like then
Big,
some mega super
yes.
hyper event thingy.
Exactly. So we can finally win again because we're so bored of always winning.
That must be rough.
We should have still won that last time with John Lundvik.
Now it's working on the website.
Okay, great.
Probably just take some minutes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's great. We have a couple of participants online as well already. Good morning.
Morning.
And we'll get started at 8:30, so just grab some coffee or whatever you need in the meanwhile.
Or look at the sun, because we have it shining. Luckily
Yes.
this morning. A very springy weather we are having. Can every one of you hear the music well? Because I can't.
Oh, it's quite silent at the moment. I mean, I can hear it, but it's just low.
Oh,
I'm
let
having
me
difficulty, but I'm probably older than you, Jaakko, so.
let me just adjust the volume for a little bit.
Morning.
Morning.
Oh, now I stopped it.
Oh, Hannah is there. Good morning.
Morning.
So it's really early over there.
Yeah, it's
You sleep
6:21.
well?
Just jumped out of bed.
Okay. Is the music any louder now?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, well, good enough. Good enough. Anna, did you want to test your slides before we start?
Yeah, I'm just getting them ready. Give me 2 minutes and then I'll test
Yeah,
them.
okay, just tell me when.
It's a very appropriate image because of all the pictures coming from Mars these days, not March.
Yeah, isn't it?
Next time with the yellow planet at the back or sandy looking.
Yeah, that would be good actually.
Yeah, it works,
Yeah, it's working.
but it's not on the whole screen mode at the moment. Now it is. Good.
Can you still hear my music or did it disappear?
It disappeared.
Oh no.
You can sing, Lisbeth. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to. I'll just share instead. Hold on. Okay. Now? Great. And Anna, did you want to share the questions for the breakout rooms for us beforehand, or will you just instruct the questions yourself?
I'll share them now to you.
Okay, great.
Also, Anna, did you want to join the breakout rooms when we open them, or
Sorry, what was that?
would you like to join one of the breakout rooms or not?
Yes, I will. I might need like a 2-minute breather. It depends, actually. Let me just think about that because I'm just sort of waking up, I think. But probably yes.
Yeah. Just
Once I get into it, I'll probably be more awake and ready to do it. So it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. And Anna, if you want to share the questions with me or Jaakko with a private message or something, then we'll get them beforehand. Good morning, everyone. We're still waiting for a couple of minutes to start. But if you want to, you can warm up by typing in the chat, where are you joining us from this morning? I myself am at my home office in Töölö, Helsinki, and it's a beautiful sunny morning in here at least. Anna is in Vantaa. Hello to Vantaa. And yes, we have our Stockholm representation here as well. Hi. And Tuusula as well. Hello, Hanna. And Tampere. Eva-Liisa is in Tampere. We have already participants from different parts in Finland, even though there's so few of you yet, so that's great.
It was really easy to wake up this morning because of the sun, so I'm so excited that it's getting easier all the time when we're getting more light.
Yeah, that's really
We could
nice.
start the HERÄÄMÖ at 6 a.m.
Maybe not. Maybe you could. I could not.
We already have one participant doing that. We should ask for a verdict from Anna.
Yeah. Yeah, Anna. How is it?
Poor Anna.
Yeah, it's very dark and misty here in London.
Yeah.
And we have Helsinki online and also Sörnäinen. Good morning, Amanda and Sami.
Good morning. Then we have Kallio and Sörnäinen presented.
Yeah, you're almost neighbors.
Anyone else at Ruoholahti? I'm at the office.
Just a few more minutes and then we'll be ready to start. So good morning everyone who has just joined, and we are currently warming up in the chat by letting others know where are we listening to HERÄÄMÖ this morning. We have Lovisa and Lahti also represented. Great. Good morning, Tuula and Tuija. Mikael is from Turku and Johanna is also in Turku. Great. And good morning to our YouTube audience as well. You can also share in the YouTube chat where are you listening this event to this morning.
On the YouTube chat, we get greetings from Warsaw, Poland as well.
Oh, wow. Hello, Poland. And even more people from Turku and Tampere. Espoo, Vantaa, Porvoo. Wow.
have Oulukylä, so northern Helsinki, and Lappeenranta. Heard someone from eastern side of Finland as well.
Good morning to Lappeenranta as well. And Anita says she will be able to join for 10 minutes. That's okay. Welcome for 10 minutes, and you can also see the recording of the event afterwards, so you won't miss it.
We have Jyväskylä, Espoo, and Berlin.
Wow, international crowd. Great.
How many people do we have now? Yeah.
We currently have 82 people on Zoom, and then we have another 35 people on YouTube.
Okay.
About 120 total.
Great. I think it's 8:30, so it's time for us to get started. So, yeah, good morning and welcome to HERÄÄMÖ, everyone. And it's great to see so many of you here online so early in the morning, both here in YouTube and here in Zoom and on YouTube as well. And I guess we have some of our regular audience here. Also, I hope that some new faces. And today joining us, we have also some people who have participated in ours and Ashoka's Changemaker mapping we are publishing today. So welcome everyone. In Sitra, we often talk about changemakers and changemaking, but today we are really going to dive into that topic. We are going to explore changemaking from a few different perspectives, but my colleague Hannele is going to tell you more about that in just a little bit. My name is Lisbeth Strömberg, and I am hosting this HERÄÄMÖ today together with Hannele Laaksalahti. Yeah, let's start by practicing with Zoom a little bit. So if you haven't done so already, please open the chat and tell us where are you joining us from this morning. I can already see that we have people from both different parts of Finland, but also different parts of the world, which is of course very exciting. Me myself, I am at my home office in Töölö, Helsinki. And while you are typing, a few useful tips for Zoom. So please mute your mic when you're in the main room, but unmute during the breakout rooms. And also, if it's a possibility for you this morning, please turn your video on because it's really nice for our speakers to see some actual people and faces behind the screens. So please consider that if it's possible for you. A few words also about the interaction in HERÄÄMÖ. So we are going to have a few keynotes during which you can just listen and relax. And if you have any questions or comments during the presentations, please use the chat to write them down because we may have a possibility to then pick them up during the event. Then we are also going to have some breakout rooms, which means that you will be assigned into small groups of 4 to 5 people to discuss today's topics. And in the breakout rooms, please open your microphone and camera. And we also encourage all of you to join the breakout rooms and participate in the discussion, because that's really how you get the most out of this event. And then the chat, we already practiced a little bit, so you can use the chat to write down your comments or questions. And it's also more than okay to have a discussion in the chat. And this goes for you on YouTube as well. You can use the YouTube chat to discuss and comment. Our colleague Anna-Leena is there on YouTube side taking good care of you. Then I'll briefly introduce our Sitra Lab team today. So we have Kirsi, who is our newest team addition, who started in our team only last month. So this is her first time attending HERÄÄMÖ from the organizing side. And we have Anna-Leena, who is today managing back office and, as I mentioned, hosting the YouTube chat. Then Jaakko is taking care of some Zoom technical things today, such as breakout rooms, and Jaakko will also be hosting the chat here in Zoom. Then we have Hannele, who is co-hosting this event with me and is going to share a bit about the aims and topics of this event in just a little bit. Riina is doing some live illustrations today, and you will be able to see them in the end of the event. And then we have Heli taking care of our comms. So if you see any really good tweets or other social media posts, then Heli is probably the one behind those. And I am Lisbeth, and I will be hosting this event today with Hannele. Then one last thing before I give the floor or the internet to Hannele. If you want to tweet or post to other social medias from this event, here are some hashtags for you to use. And if someone from our team could also post these in the chat and also in the YouTube chat, so then everyone can see these. Yes, so then we are ready to move forward. So Hannele, the stage is yours.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thanks, Lisbeth, so much for introducing me. I'm so excited to be the co-host of this event. So to begin, all of our lives changed quite dramatically exactly a year ago. All of a sudden, we were in the middle of this pandemic and still are. Partially due to it, people started soon after to speak about future and foresight capabilities, resilience and change making, especially about societal change making. We were in the middle of this flow of changes around that people wanted to make sense and understand, but also to structure and at some extent control if possible. People were sharing good practices online and helping each other out. The ability to create the future and the change wanted has become just as important as adapting to the one experienced around and the one challenging us. Many organizations speak about this group of people called change makers, and their importance has increased. The question of who exactly the group of people are and how they identify themselves is on the table today. But before we go there, let's just frame the topic and the program that we have today as we're having breakfast coffee and tuning in. So today we will be speaking about 3 different topics. First of all, we will be speaking about societal change making in general. Secondly, we will be speaking about change making capabilities, abilities or skills. And thirdly, about change makers, who this group of people are. So how do we approach societal change making in this event? We don't speak about whatever kind of a change, but we speak about a societal change that is based on sustainability and building of a fair and inspiring future. We need more societal change making activism all over the society, especially now under the circumstances we live in, not to forget the biggest trends challenging us to renew and to transform our capabilities in a very short time, like the urgency of ecological reconstruction and the evolution of technology. Shortly, we will hear more about the capability of societal change making, and Anna Bernie will enlighten us how each of us can also develop our own skills in change making. When thinking about the skills, abilities, or capabilities, whatever term we want to use, we can agree that all of us have these skills within us. These skills can be anything from the ability to make active decisions on the changes needed, to the ability to implement changes systematically, to the ability to adapt to the surrounding environment, and all the way to the ability to apply rational information and skills to promote change. But probably I would say the most crucial skills in the complexity are continuous learning and capability to collaborate with others. Even though all of us have these skills, there are many things in the way. So we want to learn especially about these obstacles. What is it that stands in the way, and how do people tackle these obstacles to become change makers? But who are change makers? Ashoka will in the final session of this HERÄÄMÖ tell us everything they know about Finnish change makers, the challenges they face, the various needs they have, and what our society should be like to support societal change making. However, Ashoka has a definition for a change maker that we will use here in this event. According to that definition, a change maker is a person or a project that has identified a societal challenge, developed a solution, and assembled a team to solve the problem in practice. Ashoka has interviewed 50 people identified and nominated as change makers according to the definition heard. They have also carried out a questionnaire to 86 people. Based on these, a change maker mapping has been formed and will be presented after the break. But since the whole HERÄÄMÖ event concept is targeted for societal change makers, we're very interested in hearing who you are out there participating. So let's just do a quick poll here. Who are you there? So Jaakko, are you ready?
I'm ready, yeah. Let's go.
Good. Okay. So we have a couple of options for you to identify who you are. And now you should see this multiple choice questionnaire. There are different roles here. So first of all, there's a change initiator. This is the person who's being the first one to grasp the change process. Then you have a change provoker, someone who knows how to raise sense of urgency. Then you have a change evaluator, someone assessing and evaluating change. Change researcher, someone looking deeply into the change in the society. Change communicator, a person following and reporting on change, can also be a storyteller. Change supporter, providing guidance or, for instance, financial support to the change makers. Change planner, someone focusing on planning change activities. Then change implementer, a change doer, who's like this practical hands-on guy. Then you have a change skeptic, person skeptic about constant need to change. And then of course, if you're not sure and your identity is a bit lost, you can just choose the I'm not sure, you're hoping to find out after this event. And you can choose multiple ones. So Jaakko, do we already have people answering?
We do have people answering and the responses are coming in, so let's give it a
give people
just a couple of more seconds. At the moment we are at 75% of people voting. I think we will close it when we approach something like 85 to 90%.
I'm very excited to hear whether we have more doers or skeptics or followers. Who do we actually have here?
We actually have quite a nice diversity here. At the moment, we have 85% of the votes coming in. I don't think there are too many more coming in, so I'll give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 second and closing the poll. Let's see the results. There we go.
Okay.
What I'm kind of surprised to see is that we actually do not have that many change skeptics in the audience. Instead, most people consider themselves to be change implementers, change initiators, and change provokers.
Yeah, we definitely have the doers present. And then we have a couple of people, some people, 11% who are not sure who they are. So let's see how you feel about yourselves in the end of this event.
Then also Salla says in the chat that she is a change facilitator, and now Tuuli also. Yes, we did not have that as an option. A good point.
Thank you so much. That I feel a little bit ashamed about not having that as an option. Us like as a team representing all of us, representing like this really strong facilitation angle. So definitely next time it will be included. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the second question that we have, which is, what did you find most challenging in your latest change-making effort? And here we have different options. The first one is lack of networks and partners, or in general, just lack of people around, lack of support, lack of skills and know-how, lack of tools and methods, lack of time, lack of funding, lack of vision and commitment, and then restrictions to the ability to act, for example, structures, legislation, and lack of public awareness. So if you think about your latest change-making effort or case or project, what was the most difficult thing for you? An obstacle that you faced?
At the moment, we are in about 50% of what's coming in. The last poll, it stopped at 87%, so I'm going for that this time around as well.
Okay.
The responses this time, they are a bit longer, so this might take a few minutes longer than the previous one.
This is a bit more difficult. Might be you have to dig your memories. And we're also happy to have some feedback on the options or on the questionnaire. So is there anything lacking from the list that you find would be important? You can write that on the chat window.
Karita says in the chat that one of the biggest obstacles was to find research to support the needed change.
Oh, very good.
There's a lot of diversity in the responses this time around as well. The same goes on the YouTube chat. People are finding lots of different challenges. Of course, this is a multiple choice question, so you can also pick many if you feel like it. There aren't that many votes coming in anymore, so I think I will end the poll in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and ending the poll. Let's see if I can share the results. There we go. The main ones being lack of funding, restrictions to the ability to act, and the lack of support. What do you make of that, Hannele?
It's very, I could sort of expect that lack of funding and restrictions being there, but I'm very interested in the lack of support. So what kind of support you would have needed. So if you have any insights you want to share, please write that in the chat and we'll take your notes there. We're very interested in that. Thanks.
One of the things that catches my eyes is that we focus on providing people with tools and methods, skills and know-how, and those are actually the bottom two that are visible on this list. So that's something that we need to look into.
That's really interesting. We probably have like quite skilled people online today, at least I would say.
Yeah, that's true. Our audience today might not be the people who actually need the skills and know-how and tools and so forth. They already have that. They need something else.
They're maybe in the inner circle already. Okay, so let's go to the final question that we have. So why are you here? And we also have here different options. The first one is, I'm not sure. Let's find out. Second one, I want to know who change makers are. Then I want to know who I am. I want to develop my skills in change making. I want to learn new approaches, tools, and methods of change making. I want to meet new people and to connect. And I want to contribute to the ecosystem. And if there's something that's not on the list, you can write on the chat.
This one appears to be a little bit easier. We already have 65% in.
Yes, and there's good discussion going on in the chat about lack of support.
Great. We at Sitra especially want to find new ways to support change makers, so we're very interested in your insights and ideas for what kind of support will be needed.
We have about 81% of the responses in. We still have a couple of coming in. This one actually, looking at the results, this is kind of controversial to the previous one, because in the previous one, we mentioned that people didn't find tools and methods and skills. They didn't find those to be obstacles for the change, for making the changes happen. But if I will stop this one, we already have 82% of the votes in. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if we look at the results here, over here, we have new approaches, tools and methods, and we have skills in change making, taking the lead.
This is interesting. People not wanting support, not lacking tools and methods, but then wanting to learn more. So we definitely have doers who are skilled, but who are eager to learn more and more. Good to have you all here. Let's move forward. I'm so excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Anna Burney. Anna is the founder of the School of System Change that is building an international learning community of change makers using system thinking to solve complex societal challenges. Anna has done her PhD in system change approaches and strategies and has written a book called Cultivating System Change, a Practitioner's Companion. She's inspired by exploring how to cultivate things in practice, what capabilities are needed, and how to support change making. The stage is yours, Anna.
Thank you so much, and good morning. It's always quite nerve-wracking being presented. So let me just get my slides up, and then we can start. Lovely to see you all. I'm joining you from London, UK, this morning. So it's quite early for me. It's just 10 to 7 this morning, and it's great to see. It's great to see the polls, actually. It's really good. And I really love that, because although a lot of you are saying that you're skilled and you have a lot of tools and approaches to change, actually one of the key capabilities, I could stop right here, could be about the ability to keep learning. So actually the ability to keep learning and to unlearn as well is probably reaching my conclusion before I actually start. So also hopefully today, this morning, this will provide you with a bit of inspiration. You probably know some of these ideas and thoughts, but it's offering a few different frameworks to help you think about your own change-making capability and how you might want to continue to develop it in the context that we live in. So thank you very much for inviting me to this. I'm Anna Burney, as she said, and I work on the School of Systems Change, which is a global school to really build the capabilities of change makers around systemic change. So first of all, I want to place this in the context. I want to place this in the context about why do we need to think about systemic change and the capabilities needed. My assumption is if we're all change makers on this call, we are all working with a variety of different issues and challenges in the world. But as one thing that has joined us and brought us together this year or over the last year is kind of the idea of COVID and what's been happening. And never before have we seen a moment where we've come together around an issue. So we are seeing the first shock, as we say, of the decade, a moment of deep discontinuity and uncertainty. And for us as people working with systems change, we've been realizing this for a while, that we need to work and find the capabilities to work with this uncertainty and this complexity. We don't know how long this shock will last, but what we do know is that some of the dynamics in society, of the social and environmental and economic dynamics, are going to continue to create different kinds of shocks and changes over at least the next decade, if not the next century. So what are some of those dynamics? So when I present the next slide, really have a think about which one of these dynamics are you seeing in your context? What is the changing context that you are seeing in the situation you're in? How do you understand these deep challenges that we're facing? So we did this research last year looking at the dynamics in the world, and we found 5 key ones that were affecting change making. First of all, we're looking at the just transitions, the idea that, we saw Black Lives Matter last year, but we're also raising questions about what is equitable transition, what is it to create change through justice and equity. And we're seeing a huge kind of activism around this. We're seeing lots of questions. The climate movement are being criticized for not addressing this enough. So these kind of ideas of justice are really coming to the fore. We're also seeing massive biosphere breakdown. We're seeing fires across California or in Australia. We're seeing, the warmest temperatures on record. We're seeing changes in the forest makeup in Brazil. So the biosphere is really starting to show the damage of climate breakdown and other breakdowns are causing across the ocean and biosphere land. So that is going to create disruption in our world. And that, of course, is going to affect the economy. And we're not quite sure how it's going to affect it, but we see the dynamic of economic crisis and reform. We're seeing changes in the economy. And that's also being affected by how we're understanding our technology and our governance, the nexus between how we're innovating, where we're innovating, how we're making decisions, both from who's leading, we have different regimes, and also the way that we're leading, the result of technology and how we're connected to each other. But we're also seeing hope. There are regenerative openings, new models, different ways of creating change that are really exciting, that show models and seeds almost of a new way. So here are some dynamics you might want to, these are very big global dynamics. You might want to add your own from maybe a Finnish context or the context that you find yourself in. But really think about what are some of those big complex challenges that you're working on and what's the context that you're within. What we understood as we did that research is that before we think about capabilities, we also need to think about what are the mindsets that inform how we respond. So if we have these big global challenges, we also need to think about what different mindsets might we respond to issues like COVID. And we could put any issue in the middle of this diagram. One reaction is we compete and retreat. At the beginning of COVID, we saw a lot of people quite rightly thinking about their local community, their local infrastructure, but we also, that can be a very positive thing, but we also see people retreating to just look after themselves. So there's a mindset which is, let's just look after our own and who we are and kind of retreating away. And that's quite normal in a crisis, but is that sustainable? Is that the kind of future that we want? There's a second kind of mindset, which is about discipline, which is saying, well, actually, let's get track and trace in place. Let's get the technology. Let's control this. Let's keep it stable. And that can do wonders. It can be brilliant when you really want to have lockdowns and you need to ensure that the virus doesn't spread. And it can be very good when you're responding to wildfires. But it might not be the mindset that takes us into a more unstable, uncertain world. And so there's a mindset of unsettled. Now, this mindset has a both positive and negative orientation, as all of them do. Working with an unsettled mindset might mean that we can be more resilient. We can say that the world is going to constantly change, that it's in chaos, and we just accept it and we go with that and we adapt rapidly. But it can also leave us with a feeling of freefall, the idea that we don't know how to respond and what to do. And finally, the transform mindset is how do we actually create change? How do we actually create the just and regenerative future that we want? What is that mindset that helps us move forward? And a lot of you on this call are change makers. And so how are you using your mindset? Can you notice which mindset you come across when you're working on health issues or economy or governance or economic issues? So thinking about your mindset first is really important. So we at the School of Systems Change are trying to help change makers address these complex challenges, really trying to help people learn from each other and create this global community. And we've identified 10 practices or capabilities that you need to start addressing these challenges. And I'm going to share those with you now. And this is the basis of a lot of our curriculum. And we bring in many change makers, many different contributors to our courses to help really show and demonstrate how we might work with these different types of capabilities and practices. And we say the word practice quite purposefully because it really is about how we do it, how we facilitate it, how we drive it forward. So first of all, actually, most of us as change makers have a central purpose. We're connecting to something about who we are and why we're here. And that's really important as a change maker. It's not really a capability, but it's a core foundation to why we're creating change and what that means. There's two on the top right-hand corner. I'm gonna speak to them in twos, really. There's a capability there, which is how can you hold the whole picture? How can you see the whole system? And how can you work at multiple levels? So for example, we at Forum for the Future work on big issues like sustainable food systems. And we want to address issues of meat and how that is not creating a sustainable future. However, to hold the whole picture, we ask the question of how do we meet our whole protein needs? How do we meet the needs of people's nutritional needs of protein? So by holding the whole picture, it's about mapping and understanding all the different actors and people who can contribute to the change. So that really is a skill of holding the view and also working with the multiple levels. So not just saying what's the view across the whole globe about this, but what does that mean at multiple levels, at the level of the national or the local community or the individual's food choices. So how might we both work at the whole, but also work at these multi-levels as well? So those are the first two practices. The second two, as we go around this wheel, is how do we identify the connections and engage different perspectives? So a lot of systems work is sort of mapping the system, and we can get into technical tools and approaches of mapping, of mapping dynamics and viewing things, but actually there's just a basic skill of can you kind of really see how things are connected? How can you pay attention not to the nodes but to the relationships? Can you start to see how things are related to the others, and not just how they're related structurally, but also from the different people and the perspectives that you're working with? And really, you know, as some of you were saying, you're change facilitators, you know that a lot of this isn't just about understanding the issue, it's also about finding the people and who you draw into those change-making activities. So for example, I was working with Oxfam and looking at women's economic empowerment in Ghana, and really thinking about, yes, we were mapping the value chain, yes, we were looking at the food system in Ghana, but we were also engaging the different cultivators and growers and farmers associations and government officials. And a lot of our role was not just about mapping it and identifying it, but also bringing in the people who could validate and work with it. So we can get stuck in the technical piece, but we also need to work with the people piece. So those are the next two kind of capabilities. How do we identify the connections, but also engage the different perspectives of people in a change-making activity? So the next two is how do we understand agency, power, and responsibility? And power really is a massive kind of issue in change making at the moment. And it really is coming to the fore, and really understanding our personal agency, but also the power dynamics that are existing in the system. So how do we also work with both the activating forces, the force to create change, but also the resisting forces? To what extent is the old system resisting change? To what extent are we resisting change or resisting the current system? And how do you work with those power dynamics to really affect change? How do you find the agency in the movement to affect change? And so we do a lot of work with kind of deep democracy processes. We do a lot of work with facilitation to help people. We do a lot of work with people to kind of really listen to the voices of difference and really integrate change making. So I've been working with a network across Europe who are trying to work with eco towns, and they've been having a lot of conflict in their own organizations or their network about which direction they take. Are they here to really support people, kind of slow down, or do they need to get more active and create change? And there's been this massive conflict within their own network, and we've been helping facilitate that to really help understand the benefit of those activating and resisting forces, to find a collective way through, to say, well, actually we both need to slow down and to be present and forceful going forward, but how can we use the best of our kind of values and ideas here to create change? So how do we as change makers have the capability to work with that? And that really is a strong skill of facilitation that you often need, as was called out in our poll just earlier. So the next two is really about, when we start moving into strategizing and understanding, how do we understand different timescales and consequences over time? So we at Forum of the Future use a lot of futures processes, as we might sound. But we also, as we do futures exercise, it's also really good to understand the patterns of the past as well. There's a really interesting story around how you might address a problem in Syria versus Iraq, because the history of Syria is very different to the history of Iraq. So the cultural dynamics of the past and how they've changed will affect your interventions that you might choose in a certain place. So really mapping out the cultural dynamics in the past can help you work through into kind of what future vision and kind of imagine a different kind of future. So you need to have that ability to move across different timescales. But we also need to understand those patterns. When we're looking across the past and projecting into the future, we need to think about what are the different patterns that are showing ourselves, what are the different archetypes here. And when we do that, we try to find leverage points. So can we find the pattern of different mindsets or different structures that help us find that moment, that place where we can start to intervene? And that's a really critical analytical skill that we need, a capability to understand the pattern to make those interventions. So using time and patterns to help us strategically as a capability is really important. And the final one, and I think the final two, I think these are my favorite two because my passion is learning, is if we're embracing complexity and if we really are working with this changing world, how are we constantly learning and adapting? How are we moving and learning ourselves? So it's great to see today that a lot of you are thinking about continual learning, even though you have multiple skills that you come onto a session like today to think about, well, how can I renew and get inspired and continually upgrade my change-making skills? I've been change-making for 20 years and I'm constantly learning. And so there is always more to learn and always more to understand. But that learning requires us to really constantly question our underpinning assumptions about the world. We might know and understand, and we might have worked in a sector for a long time, but can we really question why we're doing it? And we're working with a piece of work with a foundation at the moment, really helping them look at why they're working in a certain geography, what their assumptions are about poverty. There's a real dynamic there about, how might we understand poverty differently? How might we question and reframe our perspective on an issue, and really thinking about, well, is it really about poverty or is it about a thriving society? So by questioning our assumptions, we might change our goals and our purpose, which takes us back to where we began. So I think I've got a few more minutes. So those are some practices that might help you. And there's a lot of tools and approaches behind it, but these kind of practices and capabilities kind of underpin a lot of change making and the ability to work with change in this dynamically complex world. So finally, I'll leave you with an idea of, so how do we actually ensure that we're transforming? And I think a lot of these practices don't mean anything unless we're doing something in the world. And I really did love the addition of change facilitator, because I think a lot of these is the ability to move between these different dynamics. So in the top right hand corner there, we have a stable ecosystem, and a lot of us are working in the world in these stable ecosystems. And what skills do we need to kind of work with the mainstream, to work with people who are keeping the system stable? And how do we also work, which what we've been talking today, as things change, as the autumn comes, where we start to see the cracks, we start to see things breaking down. And what we really need there is, how do we also let go? How do we recognize a key capability is the ability to unlearn and let go? What are we holding on to in society to not allow the new to emerge? And when we can do that, we can start to see the seeds. So that's the top left-hand corner. We can start to see the seeds. Can we really identify the new and cultivate those, facilitate them? Maybe you're a researcher or you're an instigator, but can we all find what those new regenerative or just seeds are that we want to help? And this is why the key, and why I called my work Cultivating Systems Change, is once we find those seeds, actually the core of this is about cultivating the land, working. You can't actually change systems. All you can do is work with the energy that's in it. So how do we cultivate those new seeds and the change that's needed to create the forest that we want to see? So that's myself today. Hopefully, has sparked some inspiration, taught you a few ideas. reconfirm things you already knew. And we're going to talk today now about how do you see the world changing in your context? What is the change that you're seeing? And what capabilities do you have? But which ones do you also want to cultivate further? And I really love that framing about actually we all think we have skills, but we all are here to learn more. So how can we go into our breakout groups and think about, okay, what does this inspire in you? What mindsets do I want? What capabilities and practice do I want to develop further? And how might that be the best skills that are responding to this changing time?
Thank you so much, Anna. So next up, as you said, we are going to have some breakout rooms. So in just a bit, Jaakko will be assigning you randomly to small groups of 4 to 5 people, and there you get to discuss these questions. We have also posted them in the chat, and Jaakko will again post the questions to the breakout rooms when we are ready. And when you come back from the breakout rooms, then you are going to have a chance to also ask questions from Anna. So be ready to post your questions in the chat when you come back to the main room. Jaakko, is everything ready for our rooms?
Everything is ready, and for the regulars of HERÄÄMÖ, we have made a minor adjustment that Zoom won't be asking you any question, you will just be moved to the breakout room. So when I click the button, you have, was it 8 minutes, Lisbeth?
Yes, 8 minutes.
All right. And think about the questions for Anna and get ready to write them in the chat when you come back.
Yes.
So let's get started.
Remember, mic on, camera on, and have a great discussion. And let's open the rooms. Did everyone get to the rooms all right? I see we still have some people here in the main room.
Yes, I haven't got an invitation.
Mä tulin kanssa uudella tilillä just, niin ei tullut kutsua.
All right.
All right.
Some people didn't get the invitation. Let me sort that out in a bit.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you guys. I was kind of kicked out from the meeting. Can you assign me to breakout room? I was analyzing.
Yes,
thank you.
Of course. And for you in YouTube, if you're wondering why it's so quiet in the main room right now, that is because our Zoom audience is currently in breakout rooms discussing Anna's questions. If you want, you can also have a chat in YouTube. Anna-Lena is there, our chat host, or is it Jaakko actually? No. Well, we have a chat host in YouTube, so you can also discuss there.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you get kicked out of the rooms or?
I didn't get to any room.
Okay.
Actually. So should I push leave or is it like?
No, Jaakko, can you get Heidi into a breakout room?
Yeah. And Jaakko, this is Karita. I'm also staying here.
Yeah.
I changed my device in the middle of the meeting. So.
I can see you there. Just a moment. Yeah. I need to find you one by one, then I need to assign you to the new room.
Okay.
It's an issue with different versions of Zoom. Now let's see if I can move.
All right.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi.
I just moved in as she said hello.
Okay.
Let's see.
Onko mulla joku vanha versio?
En tiedä. Mä etin sulla hyvän huoneen täältä.
Okay.
Then
did we still have Heidi here in the main room who wanted to go to breakouts as well?
Yes, you do have, but actually I'm walking to a coronavirus test, so maybe I can just stay here in the main room and unmute my microphone until I'm to the test.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
All right, so do we still have people here who wanted to go to breakout rooms but are still in the main room? I guess not. Great.
Okay, we'll just keep it this way.
Yes, really good. And we still have some minutes left.
There was an interesting question on YouTube, so we can actually take that one before people start writing their questions.
Okay, great. Can you ask the question then?
Yeah.
Yes, great. So Jaakko, how long is the time for the breakout rooms to close when you close them?
I think I will start closing them at 9:17, which gives us 2 minutes. It's quite a short time, but just to stay on schedule, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
They do have the, I think, 60-second time on there.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
So 2 more minutes.
Or maybe we could take like 18, if you close them at 9:18, then we can take 1 minute of our break.
Yeah.
And if someone has just joined YouTube, it's so quiet in the main room because our Zoom audience is currently in breakout rooms discussing. So that's why.
Anna, when people come back, we do have a question for you on YouTube that I would like to ask you when people are writing their questions in the chat.
Great, yeah.
So someone was asking, how is system change defined at School of Systems Change and what constitutes system change?
Do you want me to answer that now?
No. When we close the breakout rooms in about 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's fine.
But we have some time for the people to write their questions in the chat. Otherwise, we were just sitting here and waiting for people to type, which is not the best. So there's a warm up. So I will be asking that question when people come back.
Great.
Okay, so 2 more minutes and then the people are coming back, right? Great. And thank you again, Anna, for the presentation. It was really, really great.
Pleasure.
It is getting a lot of praise in the chat as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well done. Also, Lisbeth, well done with the hosting.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, I will be closing, and so people will be back in 1 minute.
Yes, great. I think people are having good conversations since they're staying in the rooms as long as possible.
It's always a good sign. We still have 10 seconds to go.
Yeah,
and
now
10 seconds for people to actually close their rooms.
Yes, now we have some people already coming back. Welcome. Yes, welcome back from the breakouts, everyone. We still have some people in the rooms, right? Or had they closed?
They are still closing. People are coming in, so give it a couple of more seconds.
Great.
All right, I think the number of people has been stabilized, so feel free to go ahead.
Okay, great. Welcome back to the main room, everyone. Hope you had some inspiring discussions. So now you have the chance to ask questions from Anna. So please post your questions to the chat, and then Jaakko will be able to pick them up from there. And I actually heard that we already had a question in YouTube. So maybe we can start with that one while you type your questions here in Zoom.
Yeah, someone on YouTube actually pasted in the chat here. Someone on YouTube was asking the question of how is system change defined at School of Systems Change and what constitutes systems change? So Anna, what would be your take on that one?
Yeah, no, I mean, one answer is we actually have multiple definitions at the school because we bring in different contributors. So we like lots of different ideas of what systems change is. So my definition is that it's the emergence of a new pattern of organization. So it's the emergence of a new system. But actually, we also talk about systems change as a process and an outcome. So we often think of systems change as what is the outcome we want to change? We want to change one system from this to that. You know, how do we change it from an unsustainable system to a sustainable system? And that is systems change when we change the pattern of the way that system is organized. But systems change is also a process, the process by which we create change systemically. So these capabilities and practices I was sharing are systemic capabilities. And so the way we create change systemically is also systems change. So we use those dual ideas of systems change as outcome and systems change as process is kind of one way to think about it.
Great, thank you, Anna. Jaakko, do we have some other questions in the chat?
They are still coming in, but we have a couple already. One of them is, how should we teach change-making skills and the whom?
Well, change-making, actually we're all change makers. Like we all are affecting change in our local systems, in what we're doing just by our everyday behaviors. But there are what we call self-appointed change makers. And I'm assuming a lot of you are self-appointed change makers and you're doing it in whatever context and way you want to be. And as I said before, a lot of this isn't about saying you need X mapping skill or Y strategy skill or innovation. A lot of this is actually helping people. A lot of what we do at the School of Systems Change is help people go on their own learning journey, finding the right tools and approaches that they need. So a lot of it is providing the right learning environment, actually. How do we actually support people learn and find their own questions and find their own tools and approaches to help them on their continual journey? That's why I was so excited by your poll originally. That a lot of this is providing the container, the space to be in community, to connect with each other, to have moments like this where we can develop. So it's kind of a get out question, but the learning process we don't often value as much as the skill development process.
Thank you. Then we have another question that was actually posted earlier. This one is from Katerina. But Katerina, if you are online, you could also ask your question yourself, if you feel like it.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I would like to ask, so is actually the central purpose that was shown before in this framework is also connected to the concept of sense making. So does the sense making need change makers or leaders, or does this concept come like from itself and every one of us can make sense and become this change maker?
Yeah, I think I understand your question. I think there's two kinds of purposes and I think they're connected. The first one is what is your calling? What is the purpose that you want to work on? What is the bigger question that you have? And as a change maker, it's like, what are you noticing in society that you want to actually contribute to? And then there's a question about a central purpose, which is, it's almost like both a central purpose and a whole purpose, which is saying, what is the world needing from us now? What is the change that's required in the world? And that's really about what does it take to have a flourishing planet and a flourishing society to really support our development, our who we are as people. So there's both a sort of a how do those two things connect between you as an individual, like what's your calling, what's the thing that really gets you out of bed in the morning, and what's the thing that the world really needs, what's the world, like what is that bigger purpose, the bigger thing, and how do those two things have a conversation? So if we were working in one of our programs, we would be talking about how can you sense what is needed in the world, and how can you sense how that makes you feel and how you interact with that, because there's enough work to be done for all of us, so we don't all have to be doing the same thing.
There are a lot of really good questions in the chat, actually, and they kind of overlap as well. I'm having a hard time kind of picking which one we should take. I think there are a couple that are, to some degree, they are connected. So if I would ask this one first, so how would you, actually, Johan, are you hearing me? You can ask your question yourself as well.
Sure. Hi, Anna. It was lovely to hear from you and see the picture. It was great. I was wondering, how would you approach the actual ones with the power, the decision makers that hold the power to say nay or support the thing? How do you get enough time in order to actually make them see what we're trying to do? If you see what I mean.
Yeah, no, I do see what you mean. And that is one of my personal inquiry questions. I also have my own learning questions. How do you work with current power? I think is a really great question at the moment. And I think one of the capabilities was working with activating and resisting forces. So you really have to understand what is their resistance, and there is value in their resistance. So there is something that there's something good. They want the current system. They don't want change, but there's something good about that as well. So how do we really understand their viewpoint? How do we understand it and then use that to help them move forward? So that's a lot of what you have to do as a facilitator of change, is really understanding which bit of you is actually powerful. I'm doing a lot of work on my own power and positionality at the moment to really understand how I can tune into that, rather than we're in this dynamic of you and them, and that they're powerful and you're not. And you say, well, I've got power as well. I'm a director of an organization. How do I understand why they're not resisting change? I'm scared of the change as well. So how do we, and I saw another question was saying emotional work. Okay, I'll sort of answer that question as well, because a lot of working with power is actually working with emotions. Like the reason why we resist change is because they're deeply rooted in our personal developments, that they're rooted in who we are. So actually a lot of this is bringing out the not just the heady change pieces, but the emotions and the deep psychology of who we are. And so that is how we work. We tried, how do we facilitate that and not push them to the edge? So I use this concept or teaching idea of yoga. I mean, I do yoga, and you can't walk into a yoga studio and do a handstand straight away, right? So and everyone has different flexibility. And what I love about yoga is you don't have to be on the same level, but everyone has their resistance, right? Everyone has their moment of shifting. So when you're working with people's emotions and power, you're trying to push them to the next yoga move, right? So that you're increasing their flexibility and you're increasing their ability to work with change. So you have to really notice, like, can they do downward dog yet? Or can they do a handstand? What are they ready for? And then you push them a little further, but you don't push them over the edge because that stops them. So there's something about that when we're working with power and working with emotions that is a real dynamic that you have to really, it's not just a capability, it's like you really have to tune into people and how you work with that dynamic.
Thanks. Great answer.
I think we have time for one more question. So, Jaakko, do you have a good one in mind?
There are many. I was thinking that, Juha Turunen, are you hearing me?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, can you pause your, it's not that much of a question, it's more of a...
Yeah, about sort of that, I think is that in every system there's a kind of underlying beliefs, rules, and so on, which kind of are organizing and guiding how the system is organized. And when you challenge and change those rules, the system changes. And I would like, Anna, you to comment, is that kind of thinking and how that asking about the system change. You change the rules, you change how it gets organized, then you get the change.
Completely. I completely agree with you. And that's why I bring up the idea of mindsets, because mindsets are also this deep belief systems about the world and how we see it. And I organize it in one way here, we can organize it in different ways. And we have to tune into what those are, because those are the deeper patterns. Actually, when we're talking about working at multiple levels, we're also talking about those deep mindsets and belief systems, and those affect actually the structures that we see out in the world. So we have to tune into them, and we have to be very from my previous answer, we have to be really careful about how we work with them. But what I'm seeing emerging in change work at the moment, we've just been doing some work with some climate activists and working on sustainable living processes, is the role of narratives, and the role of framing is becoming a stronger, and meaning making is becoming a stronger change making tool, actually. So how do we reframe things? How do we change the narrative to help people see that there are different belief structures that we can live by and we can work by? And so I think there's a really exciting area of change making that's starting to really grow at the moment. And I think it can help us not just tap into the individual beliefs, because that takes a long time, but can maybe create a more cultural, societal shifts by working with narratives. So that's sort of also something that is exciting me at the moment.
Thank you, Anna, and thanks everyone for your great questions and comments. And we'll also be saving the chat, so your comments and questions won't go to waste, even if you did not have time to ask them now live. Next, we have a short break. So if you need to grab another cup of coffee or stretch a little bit to get up for a few minutes, whatever you need, then do that. And we will see you back here with Ashoka's Changemaker mapping in 3 minutes, 9:33. And to Rita's question, yes, you can have Anna's slides after the event. We will be sharing them in our event website.
Lisbeth, will you be sharing some break music?
Oh, yes, I can do that.
Then I know when the break ends.
Yeah, that's true. I have like 2 minutes left, but let me try if I can be really quick. 1 minute left.
Super quick. No, never mind if it's...
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I should have thought that beforehand.
Well, you can always sing. That is still an option.
Rina, you can sing.
I actually I have this nice tradition to all of my really close family members, that when they have their birthday, I try to sing as loud and as like bad as possible. Happy birthday! I'm really good at it. But so if anyone has birthday today, no.
That's great. I remember that as an opening number for our next HERÄÄMÖ.
Yeah.
Every birthday person then can enjoy.
And if it's this early in the morning, I will promise that we'll wake you up.
Well, why didn't you say earlier? We could have done that today.
I would have pretended to have a birthday just to get
a
view.
But I can share. Oh, do we have? We probably don't have time. No, never mind.
Yeah. Actually, yes, our super short break is already ending. I hope everyone has found their way back already. Amanda, are you online? Natalie is there. At least I can see you.
Yes, we are both here.
Okay, great. Maybe if we wait just 1 more minute, so we'll be sure that everyone's here, and then you can start.
Amanda, I'll start sharing the screen once you give a green light.
Yeah, you can definitely go ahead.
Let's do it.
Okay, I think we are good to go. So next we are going to dive to the results of the changemaker mapping we are actually publishing or have published today. So you will be among the first ones to hear about the results. So we have from Ashoka Nordic, Amanda Sundell and Natalie Saida presenting the results. And yeah, without further ado, I'll give the stage to you. Welcome, Amanda and Natalie.
Thank you so much, Lisbeth. And thank you to CITRA for joining us in this exercise. So we've mapped the change makers and social entrepreneurs in Finland, and we've launched the report today. And we are here to share some insights that we see emerging from the field. And before we dive into it, I just want to say a huge big thank you to all of you who participated in the mapping, either in one of these pretty in-depth interviews or then filling in our survey on your work as well. I see a lot of familiar faces here today and have chatted with a few. So thank you again for joining us in this effort. And for all of those of you who don't know Ashoka, I thought before we go into the methods and the mapping, I'll just share a few words about who we are. And so Ashoka is the world's largest network of social entrepreneurs and change makers, founded in 1980 by an American man called Bill Drayton. And it said that he was the one who coined the term social entrepreneurship as well. And that's what we're really focusing on. So we identify and support these systems changing social entrepreneurs that we elect into our network, which we call the fellowship. And then we support them with peer-to-peer support, learning, financing, various things to help change makers scale their impact and reach further. We also work sort of with the ecosystem, so to strengthen the surroundings and just the infrastructure for change making. And we work a lot with young change makers, also here in Finland, in all of the Nordics, but also globally. And Ashoka, as you can see on the slide, is active in more than 90 countries. So we've elected fellows so far from 93 countries, but not Finland. So that's a big to-do, something we really look forward to. So finding the first Finnish Ashoka fellow, and you can always contact me with nominations. On this slide, you see a little bit the global reach of Ashoka, so where these social entrepreneurs in our network, where they're based. You see that there's a strong representation of Asia, also Latin America. In Europe, we're coming to over 600 this year, once we update the figures. And among some of the sort of more well-known Ashoka fellows, we could mention Mohamed Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank, who was really sort of essential to creating the microfinance movement. Also a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. And in Europe, for instance, Jimmy Wales, who founded Wikipedia and revolutionized the way we share information. And just to mention that these are really, these kind of sort of open source solutions are something that we really encourage, so that there's really the strongest focus on scaling the impact and not really scaling a particular organization or a social business, but it's about really thinking about how can we change the system, as Anna was talking about earlier, and bring about change in collaboration with others. And here I also wanted to just bring in an example of someone in the Nordics, an Ashoka fellow working on systems change here. And Torkel Sonne, he really wants to change our mindsets and our labor markets. So how can we change our labor markets to become more inclusive of people on the autistic spectrum and with neurodivergence? He saw through his son, who's on the autistic spectrum, that these people can have these special skills that really sort of outperform many others. Fantastic capacity to memorize data or see patterns where others don't see them. And he was very frustrated by the difficulty and the challenge for these people to find employment. So Torkel set up the Specialisterna Foundation, which works in on several continents, Canada, Ireland, Denmark, loads of other countries. And their mission is to create 1 million jobs for people on the autistic spectrum and with neurodivergence. So this is an example from here. And of course, in the Nordics, Ashoka has 22 fellows. We've been active here since 2011, and Ashoka has just last year started working here in Finland. So that's also why it's so great to do this mapping together with Sitra Lab at the beginning of our operations here.
Thank you, Amanda. And before we dive into the actual results from the map, we just also wanted to share a bit of the background, the criteria, and why are we even doing these sort of mappings. And as a background and an overview of the mappings that Ashoka has been conducting since 2014, you can see on this physical map, not in a literal sense, where we have conducted maps before. Today, we're very, very proud to finally put the sort of darker green dot on Finland to say that it's completed, and moving forward into the remaining Nordic countries. And we're hoping to, in a few months' time, also have a comparison between the different countries in the Nordics and the different changemaker ecosystems. But you can see that there has been, this is not a new thing for Ashoka. We've been doing this for a few good years, and it has been a very effective tool in understanding what are the needs and the challenges of the changemakers in each country. So why did we do this map in, first of all, Finland, and then later on also in a Nordic level? For us, it's important, as mentioned earlier, to understand the needs, the challenges, what are the milestones, or what are the sort of ideas, frustrations, successes of the different changemakers in each country. We want to understand this by understanding different trends, but also various insights, and share some recommendations based on the sort of institutional knowledge that Ashoka has had since 40 years back. We know that it's an important aspect of also share more visibility and awareness and outreach about the work that is being conducted by the changemakers locally. So we hope also that this map will act like a tool for that. And lastly, of course, making sure that through this map and different sort of ways of visualizing the data that we have collected, create more collaboration, not just within the country, but also across the borders within the region. So who did we actually look at when we started to do this changemaker map? Hannele shared the definition as well earlier on who we define as a changemaker. But when we break that down, we can see that we are looking at 3 categories for this mapping. We were looking at the social entrepreneurs, we were looking at young changemakers, and we were looking at changemaker initiatives. And changemaker initiatives are 2 or more impact-oriented organizations that basically, bring their muscles together and collaborate to create positive societal impact. So something beyond just one organization. And we had a few criteria that we were using in selecting the people that participated, making sure that it's streamlined. So it was from establishment. Establishment is a little bit more vague because, for instance, young changemakers don't always have, for instance, the legal rights to do an establishment and so on. But that was one of the criteria. We were making sure that they had a social mission, that it was impact orientated, that we were looking on those open source that Amanda mentioned, that these are ideas that want to scale and to collaborate. And now, I'm sorry, the last one is the scaling and impact as well. So at the end of the day, a few months after having done the mapping, we came to the result of having engaged 136 changemakers all over Finland, which is fantastic. There's been such a wealth of insights and knowledge and just open sharing with all of you. So thank you. And here you can see the sort of gender distribution. There's an over or strong representation by women. And just a disclaimer, what you're seeing now is of course just a fraction of what the report itself has. We'll share a link if it's not already done. Sorry, I can't see my chat, but if it's not, it will be there so you can see the 50 over pages of just a wealth of or a gold mine of basically data. But this is some parts of the demographics. You can also see here the thematic distribution of the changemaker that participated. So for instance, climate change is well represented, while for instance, well-being or biodiversity and art or culture was a little bit lower. But this gives us a sort of an indicator of who joined in. And then also when it comes to the actual mapping, again, that disclaimer that there's so much to take part of in this report. So we have around 5 bigger chunks. One is more insight on the demographics, elaborate versions of the different trends that we have seen through the interviews and the surveys that we collected, and then additional insights. So basically that maybe didn't hook into the trends, but are important understanding of the field. And then we also developed digital maps, which I will show just a sort of a glimpse of how it looks like. But we created these 4 different digital maps that you can play around with using this fantastic tool called Graph Comments. So if you click, you can see basically which are the overlapping topics or which trends are a little bit stronger. Here, for instance, you can see that the revenue of most of the Finnish changemakers are from fees. So we'll also share a link with that to basically go into the tool and play around with the graphs as well. That's for me, Amanda. Over to you.
Yeah, and so what do we see emerging from these interviews and the questionnaires that we received? We sort of see five trends, 5 insights that we want to share. And the first one is centered on identity. So, you know, I am a change maker, or am I? I mean, Anna said that we are all change makers. In Finland, however, it feels like change maker is not the first and foremost sort of identity, and it's not maybe a priority to label what you guys and the change makers out there are doing. But we do see that there is a very strong understanding of why, so a very strong drive and motivation behind sort of acting for societal change. And the 2 sort of most strong themes are either a personal experience of an issue, so perhaps you have a sibling who's disabled, and so you've really sort of, through your family, realized how inaccessible spaces can be, or you're part of a minority, or for some reason climate change is affecting your community very strongly. So it's the sense of personal experience. But there's also a very strong sense of ethics and values that come true, sort of, it is our moral obligation. And I think here also the sort of responsibility almost for the current structures also shines through. People are saying, you know, we are so privileged. We see that we have these, you know, this system or this structure at the moment, and it doesn't include these people, or it doesn't enable us to solve this issue. And so I feel it's my responsibility to take action as well. So these are the sort of answers that we got on this question. And here I have a quote also that sort of illustrates this. And it seems like this low self-identification is coupled to 2 phenomenons as well. And one is a low awareness overall, and we'll see this later on. There's an overwhelming sense that in Finland, change making and social entrepreneurship aren't well-known concepts, especially to the general audience. Only 6% of our participants said that this is a well-known concept to the wider population. And so perhaps this sort of lower awareness also figures here. And then what I mentioned before, this sort of thinking that mission trumps label, really, you know, what you do and the change you're wanting to create is more important than how you label yourself. But we still have some recommendations in this regard. And again, I'd really welcome you to go into the report and look at the recommendations more in depth. But we would like to encourage all of us who are here today, who are working in this field, and other actors to showcase the impact that current change makers are creating and inspire action in others. And I thought there was a great comment, or actually it was a question, how should we teach change making and to whom? And we believe that the change making skills and these concepts should be brought into education. And that's something that Ashoka has done through Changemaker schools, also working with universities, with what we call the Ashoka U, but really bringing in these sort of concepts at an early age so that we all have this sense of empowerment and an understanding that solving wicked problems is possible and that it can be a key part of our identity. So that's one of the recommendations, and the other is that we should also target youth because the young change makers we interviewed seem to have less of a contradiction with the terminology and are quite keen to identify themselves as change makers. So that's related to identity. If we move on, we'd like to highlight the question of awareness that I already mentioned. It really does seem that awareness on social entrepreneurship and change making is quite low in Finland outside of the people who are actively engaging on this topic. And so how do we sort of convey the message and the potential of change makers to a broader audience? We believe that would be really important. It could answer to the question that is shown here in the illustration, that 22% of change makers in Finland feel that lack of confidence is a key obstacle to creating impact. And it could also answer to the question of low acknowledgement. So a feedback that we got in the interviews, also in the questionnaires, was that that people would like to get acknowledgement for what they're doing and for the way that they're trying to solve issues as well. And maybe this is related to what we saw in the poll earlier that Hannele shared. People say that there's lack of support. Maybe it can also be a more general sort of this lack of understanding and acknowledging that this is a valuable way to try to change things. So we really encourage all the actors to look more at this awareness and how it affects the field. And here our recommendations is to really work, jointly in joint efforts for public awareness. A lot of change makers, 36% of the ones participating, work on storytelling already themselves. So maybe this is something we can pick up on and support. We can bring it into media, we can bring it in again to education and to new parts of society. And then we should also maybe look at the terminology. In Finland, there are quite a lot of different categories when we look at the social economy sector. We have work integration, social enterprises, we have the social enterprise mark, then we have self-identified change makers and social entrepreneurs. There are change maker initiatives. So we have a lot of different concepts. And they don't always sort of fit neatly under one umbrella where people would feel maybe included and would feel that sense of belonging that we think would be really helpful to strengthen the ecosystem, because it strengthens that feeling of community. So that's one thing where we would like to spark the debate. Is there a term that we could use that we could use jointly to create the sense of belonging, and also that way increase the legitimacy for this community and these actions. And if we look then on to our next area, funding really emerged as a critical issue, and I guess that's not a surprise. I mean, also if we look at any sector, funding is important. So we think in Finland we should look more at how do we finance systems changing social innovations. And we can see that at the moment, funding seems to be a pain point. Sort of it's seen by the majority as an obstacle to create impact. And of course, we'd like to sort of turn that figure around. There is a lot of interest in diversifying funding streams. At the moment, government grants and fees for services and products are the major funding streams for social entrepreneurs and change makers. After that comes sales, direct sales, then grants from foundations that account for the main funding for around 20%. But then if we look at self-funding or external investments, crowdfunding also, those are very small models of financing at the moment. So external investment were mentioned by 7%, crowdfunding by 6%. So there's clearly something to be done here, and it seems like the impact investment scene is emerging in Finland. But is there enough understanding then of the social enterprise models that are non-profit in nature, or not sort of a clear for-profit model with a product and a scalable model? So in this area, we would really sort of recommend to look at or to build stronger foundations. So really looking at spreading knowledge about what different funding mechanisms are out there, building relationships. So this is something that both the change makers themselves and funding partners can do. So establish a relationship where both parties understand the working logic, they understand the impact created. So I think impact measurement and communication from the change maker side is really important. And that could then perhaps lead to this flexibility that we also see a lot of people yearning for. So how do you create long-term partnerships with a funding partner? If you want to go the grant route, for instance, and you can't fund all of your activities with sales or fees for your services, for instance, how do you establish a long-term partnership where you can really develop your innovation and go towards systems change and not be so sort of boxed in and have to plan on a yearly basis or biannual basis, for instance. So these are the things that we're looking at here, building stronger foundation. Also, the public sector could get engaged more strongly. In Finland, public procurement accounts for 35 billion euro, or we make public procurement for that amount every year. There's been some recent developments. Municipalities are bringing in social impact as a criteria in their tendering processes, which is really encouraging. There could probably be much more done there. Again, if we bridge the divides, if we build the awareness and those connections. And also related to that are the mission-based ecosystems. In Helsinki, there's something called Helsinki Health Capital, for instance, where you're bringing different actors together to create a certain outcome. And so including social entrepreneurs and change makers here could be a really useful way of doing it. And then closer collaboration with business, which can take a lot of different sort of paths, and that's something that we also write more about in the report. And then if we move on, we sort of see in the interviews and the questionnaires that perhaps we need a more encouraging and allowing surrounding in general. Like, how do we create a sort of allowing ecosystem for really experimentation, for taking risk, and for sort of this trial and error mindset that we in Finland have encouraged in the startup for-profit startup ecosystem quite successfully. We think that that could be very useful also in the social innovation and change-making sphere. So this trust that when you are building something, a little bit like the quote here, you're building something that hasn't been done before, you need to maybe take risks. You need to have that experimentation culture. But what we see as super encouraging and interesting here is that 61% of the participating change makers are working on system and framework change. So they are really reaching for this new equilibrium and sort of reframing things. And of course, as Anna said, it's also a process and it's a practice. So I don't think everyone who said that they are working on this would claim that they've achieved it, but they are going in that direction. And the reason we also want to highlight this is that we see that it's linked to so many of the other recommendations as well, especially the one that comes after, really bringing in more actors, working in a more cross-sectoral way, where we can have this cross-pollination of ideas, and where we together can work on innovation more successfully. And here our recommendations is to really sort of have this sort of big vision. The goal could be to have a really open national social innovation agenda, taking examples and models from other European countries who worked successfully with these, and really support change makers throughout, all the way from ideation to implementation, to make sure that there's support in all the phases, also to experiment and to take risks. And then the fifth area that we focused on was networks. And earlier today, we were talking about how important it is to find the right people and engage them in the activity, so engage them in the change. And that's really a key skill and a key factor for success. We see from the participating change makers that networks are really seen as crucial for success. A big majority lists them as an enabling factor. It's also listed as a skill, so networking as an important skill that enables the work. But there's a demand for more. So there's a demand for more peer-to-peer platforms for sharing, for learning, for more cross-sectoral collaboration, as I mentioned. So having access to people from other areas, and here specifically academia was mentioned. Someone shouted about research earlier today, sort of that's an issue. So closer connections to academia, government officials, municipalities. So those are some of the connections that people would still like to see, and that change makers feel would be beneficial for their work. And linking this to the innovation, we see that open networks are conducive to innovation. And they also offer this support and pathways to implementation that we were talking about. If you know people within government, you have a close connection to an organization you'd like to influence, it's easier also to find a way to implement your innovation or to bring it to fruition. So that's why we think it's super important to look at networks. And also there is a call for more mentors, for more senior advisors, which is, belongs here in the networks, but is also linked to the fact that we see this low awareness of the field. So so again, these two issues are connected. So here we would really sort of focus on building stronger networks and facilitate those connections, all the actors who are sort of active in the field. And then also focus on inclusion, because one of the findings we see is also that the personal connections of founders and change makers themselves are extremely important. So what then if you don't have that many personal connections, if you're not from the center? A lot of our participants were also from the capital region. Certain thematic areas were really highly represented. What if you're working on the margins? How can we bring people in and make sure that we are building inclusive networks and making it easy for people to enter this field? That's something we'd welcome everyone to focus on. And these are some of the findings, sort of super briefly. We also wanted to bring in a voice from a change maker. So we'll share a video with Markus Raivio from Kukunori. And this also talks to the change maker capacities that we've been focusing on today.
Amanda, you are not sharing the voice of this video at the moment.
Natalie is sharing the video.
My name is Markus Raivio. Greetings from Helsinki, Finland. I'm the director of Kukunori, Central Association of Culture and Well-being, representing 42 member organizations and 17,000 Finnish people suffering from mental health issues. My central motivation for being a change maker is the idea that in tomorrow there's always a promise for something better for all of us. That really gives me hope and strength to be part of this change. And I think it belongs to everybody. I think change making needs a skill to understand people, to see how systemic the world is actually, and how everything and everyone is related to each other. It's also a skill to combine existing ideas and make new applications, just connecting the dots. But most important thing is the skill to ask for help, find other change makers, find truly the same meanings and the same kind of direction. We can do so much more together. Thanks and see you.
And so that was Markus Raivio, who was one of the participating change makers, who's also going to talk at one of our of the events that are following after this. And again, you see that networks and connecting people really figure strongly. What we wanted to share now is that today is just the first glimpse at the insights of our mapping. We're going to dive deeper into two of the topics at discussions in April and May. So we're looking at how to fund systems change. And then we're talking about changemaker identity in May. So you're all super welcome to join us for those. And with us, we'll have speakers from the participants on both occasions. We also want to highlight that this Finnish changemaker map is part of a Nordic initiative. So we've started in Finland and we're launching a Swedish version this week. So that's to come, and then more limited versions will be done in Norway and Denmark. So what we'd like to do is also be able to compare the results, and that's of course something that we will be able to do then in fall. And to the events around the Swedish mapping and the Norwegian and Danish, we'll also invite all of those who were here today in order to help the sort of Nordic networking and connections, and also just the general understanding of the field. And here you can see a little bit of a timeline surrounding this. so what's to come. And then, of course, we also hope that all of these recommendations that we just sort of mentioned today, that we will be able to work on those. So implementing the change that we see is needed, working together with other actors active here, specialist organizations, to make sure that there is, stronger networks, more awareness, stronger sense of identity as a change maker, better pathways to funding and collaboration, and this experiment-friendly surrounding. So more on that to come. But otherwise, I'll leave it here, and we have some breakout rooms ahead.
Thank you, Amanda and Natalie. Yes, next we are going to have again some short breakout rooms of 7 minutes, and after those we'll have some time for quick questions. So be sure to type your question in the chat as soon as you come back to the main room. Amanda, if you could still share your questions for the breakout rooms. Or Natalie.
Yes, I'll have them here. I'll share them in the chat.
Okay, and yeah, yes. Yep. Great. So there you have the questions, and Jaakko will still be broadcasting them to rooms. But are we ready to open the rooms, Jaakko?
Jaakko is faster than me. Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost ready. I think now we have rooms of 4 to 6 people. So okay, let's get started.
Okay, let's open the rooms for one last time. Looks like almost everyone got into the rooms. Is someone still here who would like to go to a breakout room? Riitta at least, and Sonia also.
All right, Riitta and Sonia, can you remember at all which people were you with in the room previously?
It was group 13, but we were only 2 persons there.
All right, so does it matter which room I will assign you to? All right, let's see now.
Matter for me, I arrived late, so I'm happy to join any group.
All right, so we will have from 11 for Riitta, there we go, and then for Sonia, let's see what things looking for. 24.
All right, I think everyone is in the rooms who wanted to be.
More or less, and if you are not, just let us know and we will assign you to a room.
Yes. And for our YouTube audience, again, you can have a discussion of these questions in the YouTube chat. We'll be posting the questions there also. Maria says that she would also like to go to a breakout room.
Yeah. Maria, do you have a preference of room? Were there any particular people that you were there before?
Joo, siis voi olla sama kuin oli aikaisemmin, ja jos siellä on jo monta ihmistä, niin sitten voi laittaa muuhunkin.
Muistatko yhtään, keitä siellä oli?
No kuule, siellä oli ehkä sellainen Marian ja joku Juha ehkä.
Tuossa on ainakin Marian on tuolla. Oliko se Marian toi Nagatsu?
Joo, ehkäpä, tai mä en muista sukunimeä, jos oli erikoinen, mutta ainakin Marian oli hänen nimensä.
Heidät nyt sinne.
Yes, kiitos.
Noin.
So we are closing the breakout rooms at 17 past or at 16?
17 according to my notes.
Okay, great. Then we'll still have a short time for quick questions in the end.
Can you see this? No. And you can see the screen. You can also see my Netflix favorites, but yeah.
Yeah, it looks great. So I'm thinking that we'll take some really quick questions and then we'll take a look at this illustration.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're ready.
Yeah, I think that at least I've drawn as much as I can. So.
Yeah, and you on YouTube who are not in breakout rooms can already have a sneak peek from our live illustration right here. Oh, I wish I could draw like that. How's everyone feeling? Sun is shining.
Sun is shining, feeling good. I'm looking at the questions in the chat. Who will be responding to the questions? Will it be Celia, Wilkie, Amanda?
I'm not actually sure. I would think that maybe, or I don't know, Celia, do you know?
I think Amanda will be the one responding, but I will be coordinating the chat.
All right.
Sounds good. Yeah, we don't have as much time for questions as we did previously, but we'll try to get a few ones really quickly.
I'm going to need to block all the announcements. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also need to take this call really quickly, so I will end it.
It's okay.
I will end the sharing, but I'm trying to do it now. Yeah.
Okay. A couple more minutes in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I think I will close them in a minute. That will give people 1 minute's time.
Yes, that sounds good.
Yeah, we also have some questions from the YouTube.
Oh, great. Maybe we could then start with one question from there when people are typing questions to the Zoom chat.
I will now start closing the breakout room, so 1 minute.
Great. Again, a good sign that no one is immediately coming back when they get the chance.
"20 seconds.
Great. Everyone's still in the rooms. Okay, now the people are coming back. Welcome back to the main room again, everyone. So, Jaakko, how does it look like? Is everyone back from the rooms?
So it appears, yeah, we can go on.
All right. So now you have again the chance to ask our speakers some questions. So I think I heard that there were some questions on YouTube as well. So maybe we could start with one from there. And please, here on Zoom, write your questions to the chat now, so then we can pick some of those up.
Yeah, the YouTube chat is currently going so fast. I will pick one from the Zoom chat first.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
One question in the Zoom chat is that if you have any insights about the industries or sectors or social issues that are being transformed by the change makers in the study. This was in the Zoom chat. So if you have any insights on that one.
Yeah. And thank you for that question. And I think we have not asked a question regarding exactly within the industry. What we have asked is in different layers. One is what Amanda also mentioned, what impact level are you on? So then you can give an indicator at least what the ambition is in what sort of impact you want to create within the industry that you are active within. And then of course the question of what thematic focus you're focusing on, which is also the industry. And in the report, you can also find a whole page that showcases what the Finnish change makers are most proud of the impact they've created, and what are the most reoccurring words. So basically that gives an indicator. And as a sort of appetizer, people is the most mentioned word. So again, it goes back to networks and the human connections.
If we go on the YouTube side, this one I found quite interesting. It's a long question, so I will post it in the chat as well. So what people were interested in is the insight about creating the right environment for fostering risk-taking and creativity. And there was a question of how to create such environment and also to support teachers in universities to adapt some of these tools in their teaching. What are your thoughts on that one? Risk-taking, creativity, and university teaching.
Yeah, I think this is an excellent question. And if we look at risk-taking, for instance, and the relationship with funders, how could we create a relationship there that allows risk-taking? Then I would sort of think about how can we have these longer-term partnerships or funding agreements so that you don't have a set of results that you have to achieve by 31st of March 22. But that you have a little bit of freedom to look at, okay, how do I actually set up, how do we develop our model, so that by, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we've come up with solutions. And so maybe thinking about instruments like, the social impact bonds or things like these, where you reward the result and the result of the innovation. But then also, I think in general in Finland, I mean, we've done quite a lot of work just changing the mindset. How can we sort of feel comfortable with also making errors and also, failing? Is that something, is it allowed when you're trying to achieve a social mission? How do we treat people who fail? Are we quite critical? Is that something we could do? So those are some of the things. And then I think, again, as we are, I don't want to say it's early stages, but there's still a lot of developing happening. So maybe this, sharing of people who have taken the risk and succeeded and really sort of giving that confidence to others is also one thing we can do. But I would say not being so punishing in the partnership and funding models that we have, allowing for more flexibility, and then trying to create this supportive environment that can be quite elusive. And I think it's more than any one actor could do. All the different players in the ecosystem should adopt this mindset.
There's an interesting one. This is quite a big question. This is not something that you might be able to answer by yourself, but this is also a call to conversation. Seida Beek Söderblom, sorry. Are you still online there? Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Actually, this is a very interesting gathering. And since I work as a chair for art-based NGO tries to promote and improve the working conditions of foreign-born art makers and professionals funded by foreign-born art professionals. I thought that it would be nice to ask this question because we are right now in the map, and I know there are other organizations, changemaker organizations initiated by the minorities, but how to empower those organizations initiated and run by the minorities within Finnish context, because most of them, and knowing by our experience, might not have enough tools and resources to reach their goals. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and obviously a really important one. And was what I was mentioning earlier when I talked about networks was this strong emphasis on a founder, you know, with perhaps a long track record of working in with something else, then going in and creating a change-making, like a social enterprise or an initiative, and then really relying on all that social capital that you already have from the local context or maybe an international context. So I think if we think about, or if we look at developing peer-to-peer learning platforms, or perhaps these mentoring programs or some sort of senior advisor programs that are specifically targeted at social entrepreneurs, we should also be really mindful of inclusion. And so minorities is definitely one thing. And then also what I mentioned, you know, people really outside of the central sort of university cities or outside of Helsinki, who don't have those strong personal networks. So I think this is really important question, and it's also even bigger than just minorities. So how do we make sure that this space is inclusive in general? And in that sense, I think we are, you know, maybe we have a good starting point, because a lot of these structures don't exist yet. We don't have these specific mentoring programs or senior advisor programs. So maybe this time we could sort of try to get them right from the beginning, really be mindful that they would be empowering and inclusive.
Thank you again for your great questions, and Amanda and Natalie for the answers. As we are nearing the end of our event, now is the time to share our visual notes that Riina has been doodling here during the event. So Riina, if you could share them with us now.
Sure thing. Just a sec. Here, now you can probably see them. Yeah, so there was lots of things. The full house of systemic practices, especially from Anna, and the mindsets that matter. And then there are also the trends from Ashoka, changemaker mapping, and yeah, everything.
It looks great. Thank you, Riina. And this we will also share with you after the event, so you get to admire it as much as you want. Okay, so then Hannele, would you still like to say a few words about our upcoming events and how we go on from here?
Yes, okay, so just like Amanda said, the work on Finnish changemakers continues as we will, together with Ashoka, hold two very interesting events on the topic. The first one will cover the topic of funding, and it will take place on the 14th of April. And then the second one on the 12th of May will dig into the changemaker identity more. And then just a reminder of the Swedish mapping that will happen this week, or launch this week. And then we're eagerly waiting for the results that will be there in the fall. And at Sitra, we will work on Finnish change. We will continue our work supporting changemakers. Sitra Lab is a training program for people who want to solve wicked problems and participate in building societal change. and the upcoming Citra Lab will tackle the theme of democracy. In addition, at Citra, we will put more emphasis in the future in finding new ways to support change makers and by developing approaches, methods, and tools of change making of open distribution. In order to meet the needs of all of you change makers, we might reach out to you, some of you, and with questions, and hope to co-create this needed toolbox of support together with you. So on behalf of our whole Citra team, I would like to thank you for participating, and also thank all our great speakers today. And Lisbeth, do we take the final?
Yes, if you can just, the slide is in the same PowerPoint you are currently sharing. Yes, so for those of you who have the time, it's time for one final reflection. So if you could just go to menti.com and use this code here in the slide and share us quickly, what did you learn today? We would be really interested to know this. And also on my own behalf, thank you very much for this event. The discussion has been great, and the discussion will of course also continue in the events that Hannele mentioned. And you can also join Citra Lab's Facebook group for change makers and continue the discussion there. If someone from our team could post the link to the chat to our Facebook group. But yeah, let's see if some of you found your ways to the Menti. Oh no, if I start sharing, then we will lose the code. Okay, no matter. But yes, we will end here, and thank you again so much, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you.